Scottie Scheffler not playing this week at the Sentry at Kapalua. What does it mean for the rest of the field? Who are your winners? Who are your long shots? And who's on your fantasy team this week? The Golfbet Roundtable back for a 2025 season. Will, we got to have one New Year's resolution. We got to start picking the folks some winners out there. It's ridiculous.
It's a good New Year's resolution to start with. Just pick winners. Find winners. That's all you need. And then when in doubt, refer back to rule number one and just find the winners. So smaller field this week than a normal week, but a larger field than we've seen in previous editions of the Sentry outside of last year. So we're kind of cutting it in the middle. I know, Benny, you're ready to go here as we have a little New Year's Eve edition, an early start to an early season of the golf season in 2025.
Aloha, yes, let's get it. Get your pineapples, get ready to rumble. It's back. Golf's back. We're all excited. And it's the stars, as you said, out the centre. We're missing one big star, as we know, a bit of a mishap. But what that gives is everyone an opportunity. Hey, Scheffler's not there. Let's get a win that's not Scheffler off the board early. Let's see what happens. I'm excited.
We've got a new Scheffler. It's Xander Schauffele. If Scheffler was going to be about 4-1, we're looking at Xander Schauffele at almost 4-1. He's plus 475 to win. Is it fair, Will, to put him in the Scheffler shoes this week? Would you bet it?
Yeah, I thought about betting it for sure. I think that he's a deserving favorite. It's understandable to see him, at plus 475 and no one else lower than plus 1,000 or 10-1. I want to know from Ben, how many times have you injured yourself during Christmas dinner? Because I feel like it might not be zero. As we saw Scottie Scheffler succumb to the Christmas injury, it sounded not great. Hopefully he'll be back for the American Express as his next anticipated start. But he'll be sorely missed this week by fans and bettors alike. But it was a quick shakeup to the odds given the limited field for sure.
Over under 1.5 on Christmas injuries for me. There's been some out there over time, especially when you get the grill involved. And look, growing up Christmas in Australia, it's in the summer, right? So you're out there in the heat. Things can happen that aren't to do with preparing meals. You're in the surf, you're getting caught in the riptide, you're getting smashed by the breakers. All sorts of things can happen. And I do remember Jeff Ogilvy having a surfing incident there too, as he was a defending champ many times. We've seen this happen. Guys are enjoying themselves. It's a good time of year. Not quite as in tune to what's going on around them, and accidents do happen. We saw Victor Holland. He might have broken a toe as well out there.
It's a rough world out there. So if we can't bet Scottie. If we're not too bullish on Xander at the same odds, look at the rest of the top of this board. I mean, it's a great field. Do we like Ludwig Åberg? Do we like Justin Thomas? I mean, these are guys who you expect to have good seasons, but it's the first week of the year, Ben, and that's the problem because you throw everything out. You throw out course form, kind of. You throw out recent history, kind of. What are you doing this week?
Justin Thomas, you mentioned him. That's who I'm doing, and I'm ready to rumble with GT. I think it is a bounce back year for him. I am concerned that he's a new father. We've talked about this before. But Scottie Scheffler showed that you can be a new father and keep the rumble going. So I'm hoping Justin Thomas can do that. I know he's got a chip on his shoulder. Certain players are more motivated than others early in the year. I think Thomas is one of those. He wants to get off the drought. He hasn't won since that PGA a few years back, and he's finally been starting to show some form that suggests he might get back in the winner's circle. And look, he's a former winner there at Kapalua. He's also been third, fifth, multiple times.
He's your pick? He's your pick?
Yes, he is my pick to win. I think Justin Thomas is going to win. I would have liked him. I was worried about Xander before, still am, but not at the new odds. He was, 8-1 before Scheffler's gone 4, as you said, 4 to 5-1 now. I can't jump on that short, that early, despite the fact that he's a former chairman, perennial contender there as well. So I think you get a little bit more juice on Justin Thomas. I think we might see a bit of a return to chalk at the start of the season this year in many of our events rather than the long shots we had last year. So I'm going to start that off with Justin Thomas.
Interesting. Listen, if I'm looking at the top of the board, JT is understandable, but I do think that I'm not ready to look past Xander as another former champion at this course and someone who, listen, he's got everything that we saw into Scottie last year is pretty much 92% you're getting out of Xander. He doesn't have a weakness. He loves this course. He's played well in Hawaii before. So, yes, the number is short. It's almost cut in half of what he would have been in a Scheffler field. But if you're looking at it at top fives, top tens, maybe as we get into the PGA Tour fantasy discussion. Xander's going to be on my short list. I would say another person that hasn't won here but does pique my interest is Sung Jae Im, who's someone that we've seen before, can go lights out. Remember, this is a course, it's a par 73. You have to make a ton of birdies. You're going to have to roll in a lot of putts. These are the biggest greens on the PGA Tour, about 9,000 square feet. So it's a lot of long lag putts from 70, 80 feet. You've got to make your 5 and 10 footers. And as much as we talk about, the driving and the off the tee aspects of Kapalua, it does come down to at points, how good are you from 100 to 150, and how much of those 5 to 10 footers are you rolling in when they're for birdie? So Sung Jae is someone who has had some success at this event before, hasn't won, but at plus 2,200, I'll tell you what, if there's a head-to-head for him and Victor Hovland, Mr. I broke my toe hitting a bed frame or whatever, give me heaps of Sung Jae in that head-to-head for sure.
I can't believe Hovland did that. As I said, I'm on the theme of comeback years, and I think that Hovland is another guy that might burst back like Thomas from what he was able to do a year ago where he struggled. But now he comes in with the broken toe. I don't know. It could be something that doesn't affect him too much. It could affect him a lot. So yeah, I'm when I wanted to come into this roundtable and say get on Hovland, I'm now saying stand back and wait and see what happens.
Well, you're mentioning birdies, and this is a birdie-filled golf course. We're going to have guys who can shoot lights out. When Chris Kirk won last year, let's be honest, he didn't feel like he fit that mold of a player who did that. Didn't matter. He won the event anyway. Guys who make birdies will, and we've talked about it for 3 straight months with your winner, that Akshay Bhatia is a guy who does well in these kind of tournaments.
He does, and this is, listen, I'm going a little bit down from the chalk and taking Akshay as my winner at plus 4,000. Listen, there's not a ton of comps between Maui and Detroit, Michigan, but one that I think could come together is how Akshay played at the Rocky Mortgage Classic last year. Again, this is another course where you got to lean on the par fives, you got to lean on your wedge game, you got to make a lot of putts. He had that 3-putt on the 72nd hole that cost him the victory, but he otherwise was really racking them up. I think that he's solid. Again, you talk about Chris Kirk. When you think of a Chris Kirk golf course, you're going back to front. You're starting on and around the greens. You're working back to your wedges, and it doesn't matter that he's not hitting at 330. We've seen those sort of players have had some success here in the past, and I think that this is one where, again, you don't need to be the longest hitter. You don't need to be Taylor Pendrith or Chris Gotterup this week to have some success, because you need to have the high birdie conversion percentage. And when you look at what Akshay did, 2 years ago or last year at the Barracuda, when he won at Valero in a semi shootout with Denny McCarthy in 2024, nearly won in Detroit. I think that there are some data points that point to him being able to succeed in this sort of an event. And last year, in his first run through, this Aloha part of the opening drive, the Aloha swing, 2 top 15 finishes at both Sentry and Sony. He feels comfortable playing out here. I think that Akshay at 40-1 is definitely worth the nibble.
I love him in the place markets. I love him in that top 5, top 10 markets. And yes, he has the ability to win. He's proven that. I think he's still got a little chip on his shoulder, obviously, for not getting that second win that he probably should have got. I expect big things from him. But I know that there's another chalk guy, and I'm going to segue in here for you, Brees, because there's one guy I'm actually really scared of outside of my own pick. And I know that, Chris, you've liked him. You want to throw him up now?
Well, I do. And I feel like, by the way, Akshay Bhatia is our new Colin Morikawa. Colin Morikawa is the pick that Ben's talking about, my winner.
Yeah.
I think Akshay is going to be the guy we keep picking. And guys, I'm just going to get it out of the way. The first event in 2025. If Morikawa doesn't win this week, we can please just stop with the Morikawa train, because last year we all were on him at some point. But here's the deal. Here's the deal with Morikawa. This is a dude who has not finished worse than 7th at Kapalua. Granted, smaller fields, I know. Clearly, he plays the place very well. Just his last 3 events alone here, 2 T5s and a second place where everybody knows what happened. He should have won that event 2 years ago, and you call it a choke, whatever you want to call it. Colin Morikawa gets this place. Everyone's on vacation. It's fun. He doesn't have a kid to deal with like so many of these other guys you're talking about, or whatever you want to call it. I think if you're going to pick Colin, see how he does this week, and then maybe temper your expectations from there, depending on how he does.
I just have this.
Said, the history.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben. You go ahead.
No, the history is there. It's great. And you can take it 2 ways, right? You can read it like, oh, he's due. He keeps playing well there, or he can't find a way to win there. You can figure it out. But yeah, you're right. The no kid potentially thing helps. No family, etc. Big family drama going on or anything happening around the pool at the Ritz-Carlton there or anything like that. So that's
no
there
injuries.
for the taking. No injuries yet. Well, who knows? We've still got a few days. We'll see what happens if he can survive. But yeah, look, as I said, I am a bit worried about him. I think, again, speaking of guys sort of coming back on the uptick, back into the winner's circle, they're now also looking at this as an opportunity. Scheffler's not there. They don't even have to worry about him at all this time around. He's not there. They can just focus in and try to get an early win on the board and get their own season off and going.
I do think that last point is a really good one when we look at what this top of this field could produce, knowing that Scottie Scheffler's not there. When we were at our 2025 season preview at TPC Scottsdale, the DraftKings Sportsbook, we talked about Justin Thomas, your pick, Ben, and one of the reasons we were talking through him of JT having a fast start is because of that little bit of a chip on his shoulder of like, hey, Scotty, you've had enough of the limelight. I'm still a player that is former world number one that has the pedigree to stand toe-to-toe with you week in and week out. And this is an opportunity, I would say, from here through the players to really get your season off to a quick start, knowing that, eventually Scotty's going to do Scotty things. So I think that's certainly something to consider with guys like JT, like Morikawa. When it comes to Colin, Chris, I have this like nightmare scenario of just watching 6-foot putts that just miss and don't touch the hole. And it did me in last year too many times of having him at great odds and just not quite coming through. And so certainly this week at a much shorter price, yes, there's the pedigree and the course history. I still wonder if 2023 is more scar tissue than good performance, having let that one slip away in such a dramatic fashion over the last 7 or 8 holes. So I will wish you well. I'm not going to join you this week on the Colin Morikawa bandwagon. I do hope you'll save a seat for me for later in the West Coast swing. I'm sure I'll talk my way into it at some point. But for this week, you're a one-man band.
T's and P's, thoughts and prayers, because that nightmare is a reality. We're mentioning guys who felt like long shots. Akshay used to be a long shot. JT was a long shot last year at this time. And think about all of the winners early in the season last year on the PGA Tour. They were all long shots. I'm talking 100, 200, 250 to 1. So DraftKings has some markets out there of extreme long shots this week, guys. Who's going to be the Chris Kirk? Chris Kirk was 200 to 1 last year to win in Maui. Here's our list of 18 players outside of 100 to 1. Is there potentially been a winner on this list who the folks can make massive amounts of money on?
All right, get ready early to laugh at me, but I'm going to an Aussie in the first round of the season.
Boy.
Here we go. But you can chuck a pineapple on Cam Davis if you're looking for someone at long odds. And that's an Aussie speak as well, because certain people in the know the yellow-coloured currency in Australia that you can chuck a pineapple down. It'll be good stuff. But anyway, look, Cam Davis, this is my theory here. He's had a top 10 there before. He has the game that can play around Kapalua, right? He's got the long ball if he needs it. But what I do like, and this is a reason why Australians have done well in the past, Stuart Appleby won many times there, Jeff Ogilvy I mentioned, and they won in a run and won many times. It's because they play deep into the end of the year. They play the Australian Summer of Golf. They have their form still going. They've been playing, staying in good nick, not necessarily having a big rest. So Cam's had some time in Australia with family. He's had a good time. He's played competitive golf at the Australian Open, the PGA, other places. So he's still in good form. Will he win? Probably not. But at extreme odds, you can get across those place markets, etc. And you won't see him at huge odds like this that often, right? So when you get that and you got a chance to win in a shorter field, I think it's actually somewhat of a decent bet.
And again, Maui's a lot like Detroit.
Exactly.
There you go.
So I'm thinking back. We did a compilation at the end of 24 of Ben's apology to Scottie Scheffler, where we had his mixtape of where things went wrong. I'm wondering if the 2025 look back is going to be just counting and tallying up the number of Aussies he backs, and we'll just have a running tally. And when we get to the 27th Aussie when we're doing the John Deere Classic, we'll maybe have an extra. Yeah, we're at 1 right now.
Hey, course history. He's proven he's had a top 10 there before. He's got the game and he's been playing.
Had a top 10 here. Ben, who hasn't had a top 10 here?
I don't know. A few people. We'll have to go through.
We're noting you down.
Top 10 here. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And he's one of your long shots.
He's not long enough.
Akshay does not have a top 10 there yet.
Okay. So if Nick Dunlop is one of your normal long shots, Will, who on this list of 18 has a chance.
We have to go a little further. I'm going to go with Adam Hadwin, who, again, has had some success in Detroit. Maybe we're having a theme here, having lost in that playoff to Ricky Fowler a couple years ago. But listen, when I think of a guy that has a Chris Kirk style of game, I think Adam Hadwin ticks a lot of those boxes, and he's not necessarily the longest player in the field, but he's much more. He's a great putter, especially when you get on some unusual greens. Like I said, these are so big. They're very undulated and sloping, and so you have to have someone that you can trust with putter in hand and with wedge in hand. And so Adam Hadwin is someone that, he had a 64 here in the final round last year to jump up and make a little bit of run into the top 15. So not necessarily someone that jumps off the board. That's why you see him down at 190 to 1 and kind of in this mix. But again, we mentioned last year with Chris Kirk and then Dunlap doing it, what he did at the American Express and Matthew Pavon at the Farmers. Like, these weren't just long shots. These were off the board long shots that made you wonder what you were doing from a handicapping perspective. Like, just start from the bottom and work your way back up. So I don't know that we're going to have quite that rinse and repeat of what we had last year. But if we do, I could absolutely see someone like Adam Hadwin sitting there at 190 to 1. I'm not ready to go to Peter Malnati, our good friend, at 700 to 1, holding up the caboose there. But give me a little sprinkle at 190 to 1 on Adam Hadwin, and maybe he can put a few birdies together for our friends north of the border.
You mentioned wedge game though, but my only fear is he'll need those wedges around the greens more. He just needs to dial in that approach game.
True.
If he has that going, if he does have that going, he absolutely is value. If he's having a half decent week into the greens, he is someone to definitely watch out for. And as you mentioned, we've seen him go super low before. He'll be in a good mood. His family is a fun one to be around. So yeah, I think that's not too bad. I can't smash you too much for the Canuck.
When you're looking at this list, to me, it's two things. I want to see somebody who has proven they can win recently, and somebody who I feel can continue to go low when everybody else is going low. I look at Steven Yeager. I don't know if he can go that low. The only other guy in this list that I see is Nico Echeverria. I mean, this is a guy who won recently at Zozo. I think he is very under the radar. He is Chris Kirk to a T of somebody who you don't assume is not playing very well. And then you look at his stats and you say, well, wait, didn't he just win? Hasn't he been in contention? Hasn't he been going really low? Oh, wait, that makes sense. I think Nico has the game to do that this week because he's a guy who doesn't have much of a history here. No one's talking about him. He goes low on Thursday and Friday. I could see it.
He's definitely showed some form coming in, right? As you said, definitely played well in the FedEx Fall and
second
has
at
the
RSM.
Game. Yeah, has the game there. He's trending, if you will. One of the things that I'm going to be following this year, Chris, in terms of form as well, is I worked out that almost every winner last season had at least one top 20 in their 3 previous starts before they won. And so that's talk of form versus course form, etc. You can get into that. But as this season starts, you need to start looking at the guy you pick for a win and see, does he have at least one half-decent finish in his last 3 starts? Because that was a trend that I found very interesting out of last year. So he fits that bill. If we're rolling through, right? If we're rolling through, he's in that mold.
It's a bit of a rollover. I'm not sure that I'm ready to count the RSM the same weight as I would, when you're handicapping Amex and you're looking at what guys did 5 days ago at the Sony Open. But I get your point, and I will say, just to push back a little bit on Nico, that win at Zozo came absolutely out of nowhere. The guy had missed 75 cuts in a row before the win in Japan, and he spiked one. And good credit to him, he's won twice now on the PGA Tour, and he did, Chris, to your point, he carried that over in the next couple starts to finish out the fall. So it wasn't a one and done, 1 week thing, and then he went back to missing cuts. He did finish it well, including that finish at the Sea Island. So, but when we're looking at, as you said, Ben, course history versus recent form, it is hard. You have a little extra bit of a variable for these first couple of weeks because you can't quite trust what guys did in their last couple of starts when they were in September, October, November. And some of these guys, you got to go to get 3 starts back. You're going back into the playoffs in August. So that certainly isn't quite a one-to-one like we would have with recent form when we get into the spring and summer tournaments.
You need to pick the winners, obviously, if we want to talk about, fantasy this year, right? 2025. Brand new game, a new season, new rules. You need to pick the winners, yes, but you also need to pick those long shots that are going to make the difference in your league each week. You want to keep tallying up those points? Well, here we are in 2025, Will. So captains count for 2, right? So we're going to focus on captains this week for setting your fantasy lineup. Remember, go to PGATour.com, sign up for a new fantasy league, PGA Tour Superstar, tons of great prizes. Will, who is your captain this week? Knowing segment 1 ends in the beginning of March, right? We can only pick him 3 times. Who's your captain this week?
So I'm, to no surprise, I talked about him earlier. I'm going to go with Xander Schauffele for my captain. Remember, Chris, you mentioned it's a new wrinkle on the PGA Tour fantasy game. Sign up, fantasygolf.pgatour.com. Get your picks in before the Sentry. You can even play against us. You can probably beat us, but we'll see. It's a long season. But I love the notion of getting Xander for one of his 3 starts this week in a Scheffler-less event, where if you're looking at the WM Phoenix Open, if you're looking at Pebble Beach or the next signature event or Genesis, they're all going to be in the field. You only get one shot at this captain wrinkle where you're able to double the points of one of the players on your 6-man roster during the week. So while I'm not ready to bet Xander at plus 475 in the outright market, I'm going a little bit further for my betting picks. I think from a fantasy perspective, if I've got him on equal footing with everyone else, heck yes, I want to double his points. I think Xander's going to be right in the mix. I think that he's a great option this week for fantasy, and I know that even though I'm going to be burning one of his 3 starts right out of the gate, I think there's a lot of leverage, so to speak, because you're getting him, and you don't have to worry about Scheffler one-upping him, and then down the line, maybe you're able to have one where you start both, and maybe you use your captaincy on Scotty Scheffler. So I'm going with Xander this week. I'm not overthinking it. I'm going to have him for double points, and I'm going to tally him up. Hopefully I get a lot of points to count come Sunday.
I mean, you say it's a waste, Will, but I don't look at it that way, because if you got to pick somebody 3 times between now and March, what other 3 events do you feel more comfortable picking Xander than this? And I feel the same way about Morikawa. That's why I've got both of them top heavy this week. Where else are you going to pick a place between now and March where you feel they're going to do better than this?
Yeah, I mean, that's
You're not.
Point.
I'm going to jump in for you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to jump in, because it's honestly, no, I want to be different. I want to be the outlier, but I can't. Xander is an absolute must on your team this week. And if you're smart, you're going to captain him off the bat. It's a conservative play, yes, but that's what you need. You need a guy that's going to make points. He's not finishing 50th in this event. It's just not going to happen, right? He is going to bank points. You're going to get double those points. You got to take them while you can. You go further into the segment, as you said, you're looking for where you might use Xander again, and where maybe you'll go double. Look, we all know he wants to play well in San Diego. He hasn't always done that, though, so there's a little bit of a risk there. You don't know he's going to score for you there. It's a tough golf course. This golf course, he's going to make birdies. He's going to be in the mix. It makes sense that you make him your first captain in the new game.
So we're going 3 wide, and we're all taking Xander.
We are. And you mentioned, Chris, the segment aspect of this. The season is going to run through the Tour Championship at East Lake, but you have 3 segments with PGA Tour Fantasy Golf. So segment 1 is going to run from Sentry through Bay Hill, and then segment 2 is going to kick off with the players. So when you look at this map of January, February into early March, you're going to have Genesis Invitational. You're going to have Pebble Beach. You're going to have Bay Hill. A lot of guys are going to play Phoenix. There's a lot of starts that you can start to pencil in for some of these top guys. Scotty Scheffler, if the hand heals, he's going to be teeing it up in 2 weeks at the American Express. So you're not going to be able to use all your top players every week that they play. There's going to be some strategy in terms of how you manage their starts across this first segment, whether it's Scotty or Xander or anyone else. But yeah, I think that the stars are just aligning this week with not having Scotty in the field. It puts even more emphasis on taking, a top flight player for your captain in fantasy, and I'm going with Xander. And clearly, you boys just ride my coattails.
The cool thing about this is, yes, you're going to be chalk heavy, right, when you're talking about your fantasy guys, if you can get those stars in. But the difference maker is available for you if you end up having to be a chaser. If you're a chaser in your league or you're a chaser in the game, you're going to be able to go, okay, who's an outlier? Who's a guy that I can not only bring into my team, but I think he's going to have a good week? I'm going double. No one else is going double on whoever it may be. I'm going double. I might just be able to catch up. That outlier is there now, and I love that about this.
Get in the game, and we will now, if you beat us, we will auction off Ben's pineapple to the winner. Deal?
There it is.